Hello, I'm Nikki Starr. Welcome back to my channel. My voice is going to sound a bit different today. It is currently the 1st of October. At the beginning of the week, I started testing positive for COVID. So there's all kinds of things happening in the face. I've put makeup on, knowing full well that when I start blowing my nose, it's going to go everywhere. But we're here, we're attempting things. I've spent a good chunk of the week resting because luckily or unluckily, depending on how you see it, I also had this week off for annual leave. So the idea was to try and get like a 12-hour write-a-thon in or something like that. And then on Monday, I started not feeling too well before that point, but Monday I did a test and within like 5 minutes, it was just like, yes, very much yes. So it's not been the best of weeks. The plan for the next 2 days is to finish my outline of Space Pirates 1 Draft 2. If this is your first video you're seeing of mine, last year I did a Millwordy challenge, which was to try and write 1,000,000 words or in some way create 1,000,000 words, because I did writing and rereading and all kinds of other things within a year's span. And to do that, what I did is I wrote my way through my Space Pirate series, which is 9 books currently. We're still having a thunk. If you have been here before, we're still not sure where that's ending up, but for now, 9 book series. And I wrote books 1 to book 8 through, and now I'm kind of coming back to it. Now that I'm out of the fast-paced, fast draft kind of scenario, I'm kind of taking it a bit slower. Books 1 to 3 had been previously fast drafted, so they were technically draft 1s, but they don't feel like draft 1s. I was hoping I could get away with like editing these and going kind of bits and pieces, but I'm going to rewrite the whole of book 1 again. The current plan, although all of my plans since June have been in flux quite significantly, is to finish the outline today and tomorrow, and then from Monday, which will be the 3rd of October, so the first Monday of the month, to start writing it, with the hopes that I'll have enough words that need to be written so that I can theoretically bleed a little bit into NaNoWriMo and still hit the NaNoWriMo goal. Not entirely sure how that'll work. It will mean I am rebelling, but I will do a video later in the month to clarify where I stand before we get to Nano. Today and tomorrow, finish the outline. I have been doing bits and pieces, both while I've been sick and I think off camera. I don't think I've actually caught up with you guys for a little while. We currently have all of the flashback scenes written. So these books have every 4th chapter is a flashback chapter. So I've written out all of those and how I want them. And I've planned out from Act 1 to the end of Act 2 for the main storyline. One thing about my writing is I am always going to struggle with the finale. It will always feel formulaic to me when I'm outlining it, and then when I'm writing it, it starts to come alive a little bit. So I'm going to struggle a little, but we're going to push on. What I've been doing at the moment is I did all my flashback stuff first and then did all my main story stuff. So what I kind of want to do right now is smash them together and put them in the correct chapter order. So I don't know if that made any sense. It might just be the COVID brain. My flashbacks are like chapter 4, 8, 12, and I wrote that completely or outlined that completely separate from everything else. So now at the moment on my main story, I've got like 1, 2, 3 planned, and then I've got 5 planned. And I haven't looked at the interactions between them. So what I want to do is get it like chronological, so all the chapters in order, and read through it to both see whether the flashbacks are really, really jarring, because that's like its own storyline. I haven't really connected it up to the main story. So what I want to see is, are there any parallels going on? Are there any like bits and pieces I could add to the main storyline to make it feel like the flashbacks are telling us something more? And then what I also want to do is go through and try and work out any loose threads that I've got in there, or anything currently that would need to be dealt with in the finale, make a bit of a list and see if we can get through the finale. One other thing I did when I was ill this week, when I wanted to do something but had not the brain power nor the physical energy to do much, was to go onto Campfire, and I did my royal family in a proper family tree. This isn't the first time I've done this. I did do a little printed out version, hang on, of them, and colour coded them and everything when I worked out the kind of structure of the titles in my royalty. So because this is a you know, a completely different space world. I don't need to stick with the normal royal family of any particular area. I don't have to like research and go with it. But what I've done is used similar names but slightly changed the way they're acted on. I now have a bunch of characters in my campfire that weren't there before, of all like the lesser royals or like the distant royals, because my main character is going to start getting intertwined with them, and so far she only really has actual contact with like 4 or 5 of the royals, and I currently have a massive span of them. So something else I'd like to try and do before I start writing, if I can, try and work out how many of those family members are liable to kind of go against like the big space empire royal family standards, to see whether or not there are any allies to her. If my main character is kind of trying to not dismantle the royal family, but definitely throw it off kilter, is there anyone that she could, you know, ally with, or, you know, in a maybe a bit more of a dark sense, make use of while she's doing it. So that is the plan. We're going to read through what I currently have in the chronological order, adding bits to it if I can, adding to it if I need to, and making notes of what I want to finish off in the finale. So that's the plan. That's the plan. And then if I can get the outline sorted by today or tomorrow and actually into my software, then I can start writing it, which I haven't felt this close to being able to write it in a while, and I'm now getting a little bit more excited than I was before, which is interesting. Definitely this draft, in comparison to previous drafts, is going to have a lot more magic, it's going to have a lot more deities in it. I think I've spoken about this before, but the Empire essentially absorbed different groups of people around the Empire, some of whom were magical and some of whom aren't magical, and the ones that are magical tend to believe their magic comes from deities, and that they're deities able to, you know, in some way influence their lifespan. The Empire made a pantheon of these gods when they kind of absorbed, or, you know, invaded, however you'd like to put it, the other sectors of the universe they're in. Before the Empire, there was another group of people who were trying to do the same thing as the Empire, but were refusing to kind of accept the other deities and trying to make them kind of merge onto their deity. And a lot of the people, that seems to be the absolute line, the hard line in the sand, because they believe their magic comes directly from these people. So to disregard them that dramatically just would not happen. So the Empire came around and basically fought over these people, but also managed to say, you know, your gods exist, your gods definitely exist. I can see it in your physical manifestations of magic. We don't have that magic, but our deity is the kind of leader of all of your deities. So it would make sense that we also lead you. A little bit more subtle than that. Basically, that's the gist of what they were going for. There's a lot more deities in this draft. I'm going to try and do a lot more magics. Specifically, in the beginning few scenes, I want to really kind of throw this idea of like the mages at people, so that you kind of get an idea of exactly what kind of things are going to come in the rest of the series. Hopefully. I am now waffling and my throat is not going to last much longer. So we're going to go on a computer. I've got a coffee that I'm going to try and drink despite putting on a lipstick. This may go poorly. This whole look might just disintegrate by the evening. That's the plan. I'm going to put on a timer and see what we can get done.
Don't wanna sleep in, cause I got something to prove. I gotta take what I hate and finally make a move. I think of you and all the shit you don't do. Well, I'ma make hella sure that I don't become you.
It has been about an hour. I've read through the full thing chronologically. I've added in a bunch of bits and pieces here and there. I don't know how it always happens, but there's always ways I can link the flashbacks back. In some parts it doesn't feel like it has as much of a connection, but then in other parts it does feel like it's really paralleling the main story, which is awesome. So there is only now the finale chapters to write. Oh, my voice is going. Oh no. I don't know if this is coming from a sense of laziness, illness, who knows. There's a part of me considering not outlining the finale before I start writing the book. Partly because then I can just start with what I've got now, which I think works, but also because there's a few chapters in different places where essentially I've got a couple of things that aren't massive differences, but there's a couple of like decisions that could be made, a couple of things that could branch slightly. So it doesn't make a huge amount of difference to what's going on in the rest of the plot, but it means that if I was to bring something back in the finale, I've got 2 options to, and I don't know which ones I want to pick. They feel like moments that would make the most sense once I've started writing with the characters. Even though I know these characters pretty well at this point, I've written them now a whole 8-book series and multiple times, but there are a few tweaks to how I've written them this time round, and I'm wondering would it be more worth me at least starting writing certain parts of this, because the majority of those kind of branching moments are in the fun and games section, so I could theoretically start working on this, and then as I get to the finale I could start adding to the outline. But I think that makes more sense. Could just be that COVID brain is super lazy and doesn't want to have to think about what I'm going to do for a finale in this book. The other slight problem I have while I'm working through this, I'm trying to think of the next 2 books to make sure I'm not doing anything too similar in terms of any kind of tropes or what's happening to the characters. The next book could be significantly different because over a longer period of time they're more open, they're more out, they're doing more piratey things, whereas in this book we're spending a lot more time in like one solid location. Book 3, I'm a little bit more worried about it seeming similar to this, just because the main plot device is going to give a very similarly claustrophobic feel with similar tropes in it, but I think that might be book 3's problem now. I think this works for book 1, and the main aim of this book really is to get us into the characters and the world and get people interested in, you know, carrying on down the line. By the time we're at book 3, I feel like there'll be more I can add in. There'll be more characters by that point, there'll be more interactions, more like subplots. I'm hoping I can work on those more so that book 3 feels different enough to what we're doing here. That all being said, it is 1:45 now, so I think I'm going to go have some food, but after that I'm going to start moving the kind of scene card-esque things I've done in my Google Docs into my campfire. If I am writing this over the next 2 months, I am cautious of how I'm going to use software for this. So if I put it all in Campfire, I need to be able to log into Campfire to do any writing. I think for that Chromebook I would need to be connected to the internet to go into Campfire, which is possible, but it's not entirely the point of having that, especially during like writing months. As I've had in videos before, quite often I will take my Chromebook out and I will go to like a coffee shop, and I'm not going to attach to the Wi-Fi in those places. So what I also want to try and make sure I can do is keep the Google Doc Excel version, and then maybe set myself up like the Google Doc Word version, either with all the scene cards in, as in like each scene card and then an empty space below them, or just essentially a place where I dump things. So if I am going to go out for a coffee shop writing day, I just remind myself where I am, and the next few steps are obviously in the Excel version of the Google Doc. So I could just brain dump onto the Word document and then transfer across. But when I'm home, I think I'd prefer to write with the Campfire because it has in their manuscript function something I've never used before, which is the idea that when you start typing like a character's name or a location, it will give you the option to bring up the information about them, which I absolutely need. That's the kind of discussion I'm having at the moment with like software based things, of using Campfire but having a Google Docs backup. Because I can make a Google Docs that I can edit offline and then just syncs up when I need it to, so that theoretically I can just transfer stuff back and forth. The only thing with Campfire that I'm not as convinced with is how easy is it for me to potentially accidentally delete things or not have them sync correctly. Because I've had this in the past with another software I used, where I'd write a bunch of stuff out and then my internet wasn't working and I was desperately trying to get it to sync. And there's situations in those instances where I've been able to lose stuff. That's the only thing I'm slightly cautious of, because with NaNoWriMo, if you have ever done it before or you know anyone who has, the backing up of stuff is very important. It's a very terrible feeling during NaNoWriMo to be like 2,000-3,000 words into something and then have it disappear, or you know, have just had a really good writing session and really felt in flow and then to lose all the words. So that's the only thing I'm being slightly cautious of. I think that's why I'm going to leave this video then. I was expecting this to be a 2-day affair, but I think I like this plan of coming to the finale later in the book, because finales are my weak point anyway, so I feel like this gives me an opportunity to really be kind of like in the mindset, and if I haven't written the outline for it yet, there's a lot more flexibility, because if I write an outline for a scene, I am much more likely to just get really stubborn and feel like I have to do it right. So as always, thank you so much for watching. I've been Nikki Starr, I will see you in the next one.
Regrets held tight up my chest, I'll never forget what